Hey guys, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Becca and today I am bringing you round 6 of Becca's Bookopoly. So if you are new here and this is the first ever Bookopoly video you are seeing, I will link my January Bookopoly in the cards up here. In that video you will find a full list of the rules and a tour of every square on this board, so you can learn a little bit more about what we are doing here. But this is essentially the way that I pick my TBR every month. But for those of you that are regulars here, let's wrap up last month's rolls. So last month we had 8 books on our Bookopoly TBR. We had Storm of Swords to read an adult fantasy. I read that. We had The Queens of Innisleah, which was a chance card. I'm around 200 pages into this so far, but I do have a few days of the month left as I am filming this. We had a community chess card, which gave us Gossip Girl by Cecily von Ziegler. I read that. For a contemporary or a romance, we had Always and Forever Lara Jean by Jenny Han. I read that. For a young adult fantasy, we had Shadow and Bone. I read that. For an adult fantasy again, we had Down Among the Sticks and Bones, and I read that. We have one missing here, as I read it as an ebook on Scribd, and that was Hidden Bodies by Caroline Kepnes, and that was for the challenge to read a book set in the UK or the US, and I read that one. And then our final roll was to read a historical fiction. I picked The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, and I am around halfway through that, but like I said, still have a few days of the month, and I'm confident that I will definitely finish this one, even if I don't manage to finish this one. So once again, I did pretty well with Bookopoly. We didn't see that coming, especially as we ended up with a massive 8 rolls last month. Now going into June, I kind of want to give you an overview of what I want on my TBR this month. So the first thing is Readathons. I am taking part in the Biblio Games, which is hosted by my honour at Little Wolf Reads. I will link either an announcement video or the Twitter in the description box, but this is the second round of the Biblio Games and the aim is to read as many pages as possible. We are split into teams. I am on the villains team. You gain extra points for completing the challenges. I am not necessarily completing the challenges, but I will try my hardest and see what Bookopoly books we can get into the Biblio Games challenges. And there is also the Ghibliathon taking place in, I think, the second week of June, which I will possibly take part in depending on how I am feeling coming up to that readathon with my TBR and what I need to read. Aside from that, I think at the minute I'm burnt out on really big slow-paced books, so I'm looking to add some fast-paced reads in here, hopefully things like contemporaries and thrillers, because as well as that, it's coming up to the middle of the year where I'll be doing like my mid-year wrap-up, and there's quite a few series I would like to make some progress in, and I also need some shelf space, so I want to sample a few books and decide if I'm DNFing them or keeping them or what. So I'm hoping to mood read a little bit more in the month of June. But I think that is enough chatter, so let us get into our first roll. So last month we finished on historical fiction. Roll number 1. 5. Paranormal or magical realism. So roll number 1 was a magical realism or a paranormal book, and I have picked Living Dead in Dallas by Charlene Harris. This is the second book in the Sookie Stackhouse series, which is the series of books that True Blood is based on, and this follows our main character Sookie, who works in a bar. She can read people's minds. I don't know why, because it never tells me why in the first book, but she meets a vampire called Bill. This is like part mystery series, part paranormal romance. I did not highly rate the first book in this series, but this is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be smutty. It was definitely a fun read, and in some places I was loving to hate it because some of the things I just found so bad that they were hilarious. But it was definitely fast paced, and I definitely want to continue because I definitely want to experience one of the other love interests in this series, which I think is it Eric, the one that's played by Alexander Skarsgård? So I'm definitely interested in pursuing this series. I don't know how I'll feel about it, but it definitely fulfills the fun and fast criteria for this month. Roll number 2. 10. Is a mystery or a thriller. Roll number 2 was a mystery or a thriller, and I have selected There's Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins. This is a young adult slasher book, so it definitely fits into the horror category, as it is kind of like a slasher movie in a book, like kind of like Scream but novelized. However, I do believe that this would also be classed as a thriller. There's also a mystery aspect because there's a murderer killing people, and obviously we want to know who that is. This hasn't received great reviews. People have kind of reviewed it as being average, but I think this will be really fun. I've never read a slasher book before. Like, are there that many? Are they that common? As a 90s kid, I was definitely into all of those slasher teen movies, so I'm pretty excited to read this, and as long as it's fun and reasonably thrilling, I'll have a great time while reading it. Number 3. 7. which is a dystopian world. Role number 3 was to read a book set in a dystopian world, and I am so excited. And this is technically a utopian, but I did say when I set up my board in January that utopian counts because there's not that many of them. But I will be reading Thunderhead by Neil Shusterman. Now, Scythe was one of my joint favourite books for April. I also read You that month, and I loved both of them so much, but obviously for different reasons. I Amazon Primed myself the sequel straight away, even though I knew that I couldn't read it, and then I couldn't fit it into my May Bookopoly TBR. So I am so glad that dystopian came up because I am so unbelievably excited to continue with this series. We've also just had the cover reveal for the 3rd book. I think it's going to be out in November, The Toll. I'm really excited for that as well. But for those of you that don't know, Thunderhead is the 2nd book in the Arc of a Scythe series, which follows 2 apprentice scythes, Citra and Rowan, who live in this society where humanity has conquered death. There is literally no possible way you can die unless a scythe gleans you. Citra and Rowan are reluctantly drafted to be apprentice scythes, and it is essentially their story. It was really interesting to see the parallels between what they were doing and also to learn about 2 different aspects of the scythedom, because the world and the political climate and environment of this book is what really drew me in. I absolutely loved it. And as you can tell, I'm really excited to get to this one. Number 4. 7 again. Which is a science fiction. Our 4th role is a sci-fi, and I will be reading Record of a Spaceborne Few by Becky Chambers. This matches my outfit, I like it. So this is the 3rd book in the Wayfarer series. The 1st book in this series is possibly my favourite book of 2019 so far. This is an adult sci-fi series comprised of companion novels. The 1st book kind of sets us all up and gives us a really good introduction into the universe, and then the following 2 books spin off with side characters from that 1st book. Every book in this series is extremely character driven, and it is about the personalities and relationships and character growth within the people that star in each individual novel, more than it is about the plot. There is like a little bit of plot, like enough that you're satisfied when you get to the end of it that something has actually happened, but this is really about the characters. It's a really diverse, not world, a diverse universe. Both books in this series so far have been a little bit different while still having the same themes, and I just find them to be really heartwarming. I don't really know the plot of this book in particular, aside from it follows Ashby, who is the captain of the spaceship in the 1st book. It follows his sister, who lives on one of the last Earth colony fleets, which I think is one of the ships that originally took humans from Earth into the galaxy to start new lives. I'm really excited to get to this because I've loved both previous installments in this series, and it will also be really satisfying to finish a series. And possibly our last roll, 6, which is read your most recent purchase. And our final role, can you believe that we made it here without any doubles, is to read your most recent purchase. Now, I shot myself in the foot by going shopping before I filmed this video, but my most recent purchase is The Furies by Katie Lowe. Essentially, I did that thing that I do when I go secondhand shopping. Like, I haven't even hauled this yet. I bought this after my enormous book haul. So I went secondhand shopping and I found a couple of interesting 2019 arcs, and I always love it when I go to a place and I find arcs in the charity shop, because I don't mind paying for them because you're giving the money to a charity. It's not like arcs for sale kind of situation, and I'm always interested, like, who is it in this area that gets arcs? Like, can we be friends? Can you hook me up with your contacts? Who are you? So one of the ones that I picked up is The Furies. Now, I looked on Goodreads. There are not a whole lot of reviews out for this. It was only released in May this year. I believe that it is a young adult thriller, and it follows the murder of a 16-year-old girl who was found dead on school property without any clues as to how she actually died. So I think it's a young adult mystery thriller in that aspect, but on the back, Louise O'Neill has actually blurbed it, and she has said, "Witches, murder, and teenage girls. This is the book of my dreams. I am obsessed." So don't really know what to expect from this one. I had never heard of it. It was just like a really interesting looking arc, but you know, I'm looking for fun. I'm looking for fast pace. On the front it says you killed to be one of them, so I'm guessing there's some sort of click here, and I'm hoping it's fun, bitchy, and dramatic. And if nothing else, at least I can bring you a review of this very new release that I've heard absolutely no hype for. So those are all my Bookopoly books for June. This seems pretty doable this month. I'm really excited about that. However, I am buddy reading a couple of books and I wasn't able to fit any of those into my Bookopoly rolls. So I'm just going to run through the few extra books that I I have to read in the month of June, which completely negates how easy Bookopoly turned out to be this month. So the first one I am very excited to read, and that is Wicked Saints by Emily A. Duncan. This is a pretty new release, and I believe that it is a young adult fantasy series that is very morally grey. It's been recommended to fans of Alina and the Darkling. There's also blood magic in here, so trigger warnings for self-harm. And as for the plot, I don't know. I'm going in pretty blind with this one because all of the reviews that I've heard have been good, and I haven't really focused on the synopsis. But I believe that this is set in a world where some people worship gods and some people perform blood magic, and they are kind of two opposing sides. That is all I know, but I'm really hyped. I'm also hyped because I am buddy reading this with my bae Cody from Cody's Book Corner, and also the wonderful Hayley from Hayley Marie, which, speaking of, actually, if you guys like my Bookopoly videos, I would highly recommend checking out both Cody and Hayley. I'm pretty sure a lot of you will already be subscribed to Cody. We post very similar content like fun TBR games and reading vlogs, but Cody does the Wheel of TBR, which is a TBR game just like Bookopoly where she spins a wheel and picks books based on the prompts that the wheel selects. And Hayley has just started a brand new TBR game. The first video was absolutely hilarious, but hers is a Bookish bingo. So she has a big bingo board with post-it notes, and she picks the numbers out of one of those bingo ball things, and each bingo square has a different prompt on it that she has to fulfill. So if you guys are fans of Bookopoly, then I would highly recommend checking those two out, and I will put both of their most recent TBR videos in my description box so you can head straight over there. In the month of June, I will also be reading Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo. This will be a reread for me. I am rereading the entire Grisha series with Jade from JD Rereads. I read them quite a few years ago, but I would like to continue on with the companion series, Six of Crows, and then also King of Scars, and Jade owns all of the books and wants to read them for the first time. If you don't know, the Grisha series is a young adult fantasy series set in a Russian inspired world, and it follows our main character Alina, who discovers that she has some powers that she didn't know that she had, and she's whisked away to the Grisha Training Academy where she meets the Darkling and she starts to hone these magical abilities. Siege and Storm, I'm not sure if it's my favourite book in the series, but my favourite character of the Grishaverse is introduced, so I'm really excited to read this one and see if I love him as much as I did back in the day. I'm also hoping to read A Storm of Swords, Blood and Gold, which is the second half of the third installment of the A Song of Ice and Fire series. If you don't know, I'm hosting an entire read along for this series. We read one book every 2 months. The book for May and June is Storm of Swords, but in the UK they are split into 2 editions. So I read the first half in May and I will be reading the second half in June. The first part of Storm of Swords has been my favourite book in the series so far, so I am very excited to continue. I'm not going to tell you the plot of this one because it is the book series that Game of Thrones is based on. If you are waiting on a date for the live show for Storm of Swords, we are looking at the second week of July at the moment because a lot of the hosts are on holiday at the end of June, beginning of July. But the official date for the live show will be announced on the Twitter as soon as we know for sure. And then lastly, I wasn't going to throw this one in there, but I thought I may as well. I mentioned at the beginning of this video I'm taking part in the Biblio Games and I am on the villains team. If I get around to it, I do very much want to read the book that completes the homeroom challenge, which is to read your team's group book. And my team's group book is either Vicious or Vengeful by V. Schwab, depending on if you've read one of them. I am so excited to read this book. I just have not found a way to fit it into my TBR yet. So you can bet that if I manage to get through this stack, because some of the books are quite short that I'll be reading in June, that I will be reading Vicious. So Vicious is an adult, I want to say it's more sci-fi than anything else, and it follows 2 college roommates, Victor and Eli, who are looking into how extraordinaries gain powers. So extraordinaries, I think, are kind of like superheroes. They figure out that the way to achieve these powers is to have a near-death experience, and so they start experimenting on themselves and each other and kind of killing each other and then bringing each other back so that they become more and more powerful. I've heard that this is very morally grey, and this is the series by V. Schwab that I'm most interested in. I didn't love the Darker Shade of Magic series, but I'm thinking that this one will be a hit for me, so if I can squeeze this in, then I most certainly will. So that is everything for this month's Bookopoly TBR. I hope you have enjoyed it. Please do let me know if you have read any of these books and if any of them are your favourites. Please also let me know if you are taking part in either the Biblio Games or the Ghibliathon or both. I will put as many details for both of those readathons as I can in the description box, as well as a link to any other channel that I've mentioned in this video, especially Cody and Haley's TBR videos. I would highly recommend that you guys go check those out. But that is it from me today. Please don't forget to like this video if you liked it and subscribe if you want to. If you head into my description box, you'll find a link to my Goodreads, Instagram and Twitter if you'd like to follow me on any of those, as well as a link to my Bookish body butter and candle website, the Instagram for that, and a 10% off discount code. But that's it from me today. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you'll go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.